All right, hello everyone, it's Eduardo again. I will now be explaining the DHT11 coding that is available for you through Elegoo Lesson 11 within your Arduino IDE. All right, so first off, what I want to point out is that this coding is rather short. Even though it's rather short, it does have some complicated areas to it, and it does function with a library, and the library is very important to it working properly. So since we're talking about libraries, I want to point out that it is included in the coding, so we need to ensure that we upload it to the Arduino IDE. So while you're doing this on your own, ensure that you go ahead and do that before you do anything else, otherwise it's not going to work. All right, next up, we have some comments here for this lab. They're ensuring that we know that the 3 pins of the DHT11 temperature humidity sensor, we understand what they are. All right, so one of the pins will be VCC, and that is saying that it can either be 5 volts or 3. When I went through this myself, I pinned it into the 5-volt output on the Arduino. The next pin on the sensor is ground. Well, you attach ground to ground, because ground is ground is ground is ground. Next is data. All right, and data is going to be plugged into digital pin number 2. And those are the comments, so we all understand how to connect the DHT11 properly for the coding. So next down, we're going to initialize the variable pin DHT11 as an integer and set that value to 2. Next up is a little bit more complicated. I need to kind of do some homework in order to understand what it was doing, its purpose. All right, but basically what's happening here is DHT11 here is being set as an object of simple DHT11 class. All right. And the way I think of this is that you're kind of always going to be able to reference this library through the use of this text. Moving on down, we go into setup. We should all be familiar with this next part since it's been in pretty much every lab since we started class. It is serial.begin and the baud rate of 9600. All right, so that basically enables serial communications, which is important in this lab, so we go ahead and include it. And that wraps up setup. So now we're going into loop. So first off with loop, we serial print a huge bar. All right, you'll see once we bring up the serial monitor, the purpose of the bar is to basically break up the data that is input every so often so that we can understand what we just read versus what we previously read. And then the next line is putting in some text. All right, and you'll see that text once we bring up the serial monitor. Next up, we are initializing some variables. So we have temperature, and it's being set to the value of 0. We have a variable named humidity being set to the value of 0. And then we have an array of 40 segments, and the array's name is data. And we know it's 40 segments based on what's in the brackets. And then we can also go ahead and initialize that each of those 40 segments will be set to the value of 0. All right, next up, we end up having an if statement. All right, and the easiest way to explain the purpose of this if statement is to basically say that we are asking to read if the information within the library of pin DHT11 temperature humidity, and data currently hold values. All right, are they currently holding values? If they are currently holding values, we're going to go ahead and print out the words read DHT11 fail. There's stuff already there. And what do? Well, we go ahead and print the information that is currently held within the library under those names. Okay? And that all happens through the use of passing by reference. So next up, we go on down if, for whatever reason, we did not have values printed to those four things in the library. If we did not have values saved, we just go ahead and proceed on down. So we're going to go ahead and serial print sample raw bits. And basically what's going to happen here is that we're going to be collecting data from the array, and we're going to be doing that through the use of the for loop. And basically the for loop is going to be pulling information out of all 40 segments of the array, and we know that because basically it's counting up each time it loops through the for loop all the way up to 40 times. So upon completion of this for loop, what's going to happen is that all 40 segments will be printed in the serial monitor. And then moving on down, we have sample OK. So it's telling us that, you know, where we're at as far as all the information printed is working properly. And next, we're going to go ahead and serial print the values within the library that were saved to the variable temperature. And then we're going to include a little C that lets us know that it's going to be talking about Celsius. And then the next line, we're going to print the value of humidity that was in the library. And then we're going to include a percentage because that value is technically a percent. And that really pretty much wraps up this coding. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and open up the serial monitor. I already have the DHT11 sensor connected, and we can go ahead and see how this works. So here it goes. It's happening rather fast. I'll go ahead and disconnect the auto scroll function. Now basically what's happening here, all right, is that we are sampling information from the DHT11. It's going to be pulling all the information from the sensor and printing it in the serial monitor as a series of bits. Now basically this is a bunch of binary information, and we'll explain that further in the presentation that we're giving you. But just know that this binary information directly correlates to the values that are being printed here. All right, so this information right here is telling me that I am currently, at the moment it read the sensor, at 23 degrees Celsius in the environment it's placed in, which is my house, with 19% humidity. And these values don't just occur and get printed. They are actually being serially sent from the sensor to the Arduino, printed on the serial monitor, and provided here for my ease of use. So anybody that's actually reading this that can't read binary, they can definitely understand that 23 3 degrees C is right here, and that this is a percentage. And that is the general function of the coding and the serial monitor of this lesson.